Let's be honest, who wants to pay higher amount of taxes? The answer is nobody. So in this video, I will talk about the 5 top mistakes that you should avoid in your tax return as an international student in Australia. Want to know all of them? Let's check it out. Mistake number 4 is so crucial that if you don't follow or pay attention to it, you could end up paying higher amount of taxes for nothing. No, I'm not gonna pretend here to be a financial accountant or a financial advisor for you, but these mistakes are so general in nature that everyone should know about it. So without wasting a minute, let's get into it. So mistake number 1, not declaring all your income. So let's talk about this mistake with an example of my own wife. So a long time back, she worked in 4 different jobs in one financial year, and one of the job was only for a few weeks, so she forgot to report it on her tax return about it. So what ended up happening was tax office actually caught this mistake and they charged her penalty, which she accepted her mistake and ended up paying. And you don't want to be in the same situation because the penalty was quite high. So it's very important that you should declare all the income you have earned in the financial year. That includes any income you have earned from your salary or wages, like if you're working for someone, or if you are running your own business or working as a contractor, you should definitely report that. It could include payments from platforms like Uber Eats, DoorDash, or it could be just general contracting work you did, any interest you received during the year from the bank, or any other investment income that you made. That could include buying and selling of cryptocurrency as well. So make sure that you include all the income you have earned during the year. Missing out on reporting all your income can lead to penalties, and you don't want to do this mistake. So that was our number 1 mistake. Moving on to mistake number 2, which is claiming incorrect deductions. Now, deduction basically means the expenses you have made for your work. So you can definitely claim some of these work expenses as your deduction in your tax return. But it's important to understand that your personal expenses cannot be claimed as a tax deduction. So sometimes people might end up actually claiming deductions wrongly, and that basically means you calculated your taxable income incorrectly, and that could also lead to court penalties if ADO catch that up. So it's very critical that you only claim the deductions you can actually claim for your work expenses. And there are different type of deductions people claim during the year for their work related expenses, from the car to mobile expenses to home office to uniforms, laundry, and many other deductions. But as I mentioned earlier, you can only claim those expenses that are actually work related. And very important, when we're talking about deductions, it's important that you must keep a record of all the deductions you are claiming as well. So if you have spent any money for work related expenses, you must keep a record, which could be receipts you have received, any bank statements, or any other proof that you can provide. Because if ADO comes and audits you, then if you don't provide these receipts or records, you can be in a big trouble as well. So you definitely don't want to do this mistake of not keeping all the financial records and also claiming only the deductions you are actually entitled to claim. And that is one of the reasons why I actually use tax accountant for lodging my own tax return each year. Basically, these tax accountants are experts in telling you which things you can claim as a deduction and how much. So if you want to lodge your tax return using services of registered tax agent in Australia, we'll leave a link of that in the description box below for you. If you are an international student, we got a special offer with our partner Taxback in the description box. So make sure to check it out after watching this video. And now let's move on to the mistake number 3, which is failure to determining your residency status. As a person who's entering on a temporary visa into Australia, you should know your residency status for taxation purposes. Yes, you know that you are a temporary resident while you are on a student visa, but for taxation purposes, it works a little bit differently. As usually, the non-residents in Australia pay higher amount of taxes than the people who are considered as a residents in Australia. For international students, there's a clear information given on ADO's website that if you are coming to study a course which is longer than 6 months or so, then you will be considered as a resident for taxation purposes in Australia. However, if your course is shorter than 6 months and you're intending to leave before 6 months as well, then you will be considered non-resident. So when you're earning any money here in Australia, you will be taxed based on your residency status. Again, if you are considered as non-resident, you end up paying higher amount of taxes. So make sure to understand this residency status and lodge your taxes accordingly, because you don't want to be paying unnecessarily higher amount of taxes if you are considered as a resident, especially for the taxation purposes. So it is very, very critical that when you are starting a new job, you should fill out your TFN declaration form correctly. Anytime you're starting a new job, basically your employer will give you this form and you need to complete this form and give it back to your employers. We actually got a whole video on this TFN withholding form as well. If you want to know, make sure to check that video out after watching this video. Now, mistake number 4, which is very critical for international students to know about, which is paying Medicare levy surcharge. So most of the international students are usually not eligible for Medicare in Australia. Medicare is Australia's publicly funded universal healthcare system. So it provides basically a range of medical services for free for local residents who have access to Medicare. That includes treatment by doctors, specialists, even going to hospital is free in public hospital. As an international student, you're not eligible to get all these services. You obviously are paying your own health insurance, which is OSHC, Overseas Student Health Cover, but you're definitely not entitled to Medicare. So in that case, you don't have to pay any Medicare levy as well, which is a good thing in regards to your taxes because you will end up paying less taxes. But it's not just only about knowing this thing, because you actually have to get a Medicare exemption certificate before you lodge your tax return for the financial year. Yes, very importantly, you need to go to Services Australia's website and get a Medicare entitlement certificate from them. And you need this certificate before you actually lodge your tax return. It is free to get one, but you need to go to Services Australia's website and apply it over there. It can take few days to arrive, so I just suggest that you apply for it nice and early. But it's again very critical to know that most of the international students are not eligible for Medicare, so you don't have to pay a Medicare levy in your tax returns. However, if you are entitled to Medicare, then you will end up paying the Medicare levy as well. Now, before I talk about mistake number 5, if you're finding any value in today's video, make sure to like it and share it with your friends as well. And now let's move to the mistake number 5, which is not lodging your tax return. So sometimes if you are just ignorant or just being lazy, and if you don't lodge your tax return, it can actually be very dangerous thing to do, especially if you are earning money here in Australia. Now, if you are earning money below the tax-free threshold, which is $18,200 in a financial year, you may think, yeah, okay, I don't need to lodge my tax return anyways because I earn less money than the tax-free threshold. But the reality is that your employers could have deducted taxes even if you earn money less than the tax-free threshold. So you want to make sure that you claim that money back. And in order to claim that money back, guess what you need to do? Lodge a tax return. Yeah, that's the reality. So please don't be ignorant. Don't be lazy. Make sure that you lodge your tax return as per the requirements and before the deadline, which is usually 31st of October each year, because not lodging your taxes in time can lead to penalties as well, and it can even lead to imprisonment as well in Australia if you don't lodge your taxes. So these were the top 5 mistakes that you should definitely avoid on your tax return. But it is very important to understand the basics of taxation system here in Australia. For that, I highly recommend you to check this video that's coming up on screen right now to understand the taxation system better here, and I will see you there.